Hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Plum Figgy. Today I am going to show you my process for coffee dyeing papers, and I had a specific request to show how I coffee dye the index cards. So I'm going to try and do a quick job and keep the video as still as I possibly can. I'm using my phone, so it might not be the most wonderful, but I'm going to do my best for you. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my little setup here. What I do is I have a little coffee maker. I only use this, and I'll a lot of times use my leftover coffee from the morning. Actually, that's what I did, the grounds. And then I also use Dollar Tree coffee. So what I do is I fill this up. This is really hot because I just brewed it. This is as much as I can get into this particular container, and then pour it into my baking dish here. I'm not going to do that because I just poured some in, and actually I'll probably keep the leftover from what I had in here, pour it back into that red mason jar, and I'll stick that in the fridge. I'll just put a lid on top of it, and it's good to go for a week or so, or until I need to use it again. And if I can't get it to in time, I'll throw it out and start over. But as you can see here, I've got a good selection of papers to coffee dye today. Some leftover packing materials. I love this. Actually, this works really well. Some craft paper, and some of this lined paper. Of course, the note cards, and some ledger papers. So, and actually, here's some wrapping paper. It's just white wrapping paper, and then it's got the lines on the inside. So I'll be doing some of that today, but I'm going to focus on the note cards for this video as much as I can. So, as you noticed, I'm sure, sorry about that, I use a pair of these, and these are my pans that I use. This is just the roasting pan that you get with your oven. I have two of these. They're the old style, yeah, it's dirty. I think they want to call them air bake pans, and then there's a larger one that has been well used. Okay, basically what I do, I'm going to just grab a bunch of cards here. And this is going to be a little bit difficult because I'm trying to do this one-handed, but what I do is I just dip it in here and lay it on the baking pan. And typically I will do a couple of layers in the roasting pan of regular papers, but of the index cards, I've found that just doing one layer seems to work the best. And as you'll notice, as that coffee is sitting on the top there, these particular index cards from the Dollar Tree, this is the Jot brand, the ink from the lines just kind of spreads on its own, so it makes a really cool pattern. So I'll try and do this as quick as I can. Try and space these so that they'll sit well. Sorry guys, I'm not used to doing this one-handed. This is interesting. Normally I would do a couple of these at a time. Sometimes I'll leave the note cards in the coffee a little bit longer, depending on how hot the coffee is. I've noticed that cold coffee doesn't work as quickly as hot coffee does, and this coffee is hot off the press. So that's why I don't leave it in very long. There are some types of papers you may find that it's nice to let it soak for a little bit longer in the coffee, just to get some more of that coffee look. Okay, so there we go. I got that all set up, and my oven set to 250. It's a little bit hot. I am just really careful about paying good attention, so I just pop that straight in there. Yes, I have a small oven. I have a teeny tiny kitchen. So while that's in there, then I will go ahead and do another pan. So let's just set this up. And as you can see, I'm not being overly careful about extra drippage. What happens is those extra drips add even more character. So obviously I don't want to make a huge mess in my kitchen because I just cleaned it. But at the same time, it's nice to get some extra character here with your papers. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to finish, you know what, I'm just going to finish this one. Got just enough room for maybe one more. And honestly, one of the reasons why I don't stack these is because this, the lines on these note cards, it does run so well. So actually what's going to happen here is the underside of this particular paper is going to get all kinds of blue seepage. So that could be cool. And you know, if that's what you want for your effect, go for it. I tend to try not to do that too much, and if I put a different kind of paper on top of this, all the blue would seep into that other paper. So that might be something that you want to do. Particularly in this case, that's not what I'm going for. So while the one that's in the oven is going, I will let this sit. These don't take very long, just a couple of minutes. So these are actually going to be a lot more distressed than the ones that are cooking now. And while that's going, I will actually work on the next set. So let's see. Go for something that's a little bit, you know what, I'm going to pause. I'm going to set this up and we'll keep going from there. Okay, here we go. So while I was pulling all the papers out, I just made it easier for myself to get them in there and onto the pan. I soaked the craft paper for just a minute, not too much, and then I put those down on the bottom. I like to mix the textures and weights of paper when I stack them like this. So here's the wrapping paper, and normally what I do, if I had two hands, I would run this through quickly so that it's not folded over, because what will happen is they'll kind of seal together. Okay, so it didn't do that. But as you can see, as I'm doing this, the paper is disintegrating on me. So this is way longer than I typically would leave it in, and I try not to keep it all, you know, I typically don't do this, but you know what? We're going to try it out and see what happens. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment. So here's this packing paper. Once again, I would typically just run this quickly through with both hands and not do it this way. But this is going to be a little bit of an experiment. You know, this might be kind of cool. But anyway, with all these folds and creases, what you'll see is the coffee is going to collect in different places and make really neat designs. And then obviously also, as you can see, this one is really porous. It's going to soak up a lot of that coffee. I'm trying to make my layers not 100%. I want air pockets in there because it's going to dry that much faster. When I do layers like this, I find that it does take more time in the oven. And what I'll do is I'll just go do clean or watch TV in the other room or whatever. Get up and check it every 5 minutes or so, and I will rotate these papers while they're kind of like half dry, and put them back in the oven to finish drying. Now, as you saw, my oven is pretty small, so I have to tuck these in. You know, if you had a larger oven than mine, you might not have to do that. But I have a tiny little kitchen, so that is what I do. But as you can see, this is kind of just the process that I'm going for. And one other thing you'll notice, if you do coffee dye, the papers on the bottom will get more coffee staining. So that'll be ready to go. I've got my other ones sitting over there. So what I'm going to do is, while I wait for this one that's in the oven, I'm just going to set those there and kind of let the coffee soak in just a little bit. And I'm going to pause again and pull it out of the oven. Okay, so here we go. Just pulled this out of the oven. It was in there for maybe 5 minutes, probably more like 4 minutes. It's still hot, but as you can see, we've got some really awesome staining going on. It didn't transfer. Well, that was interesting. So I guess what I said, it made a liar out of me. This is hot. I wouldn't suggest it. Look at that one. How cool is that? Sorry, bad lighting. But I did pop the other one in. One thing I haven't mentioned is I do tend to only do one at a time, one sheet at a time. So while this one is in the oven, I will start another batch on this pan. This one is still sitting there waiting. And yeah, it's a bit of a process. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm going to pause the video until this one is done, and I'll show you what these turned out like when it's all said and done. All right, so here we go. I've got everything pulled out of the oven. Just thought I'd run through this real quick. So here's a cool sheet. I don't know if you can really see it, but do you see the blue there? It's because I had set some of these on top of it. So that's kind of what happens. Here's a look at some of the note cards. I do experiment with, turning them upside down. This time I didn't. I laid them all this direction, that way up. Here's a look at, this was the Ledger little kids writing paper. So pretty much all of the lines get taken off of those. Here is the craft paper. Not a whole lot of transfer or coffee dye shows on these. I don't know. They take a long time to do. I don't know if I will continue to do those. Wrapping paper. A nice little line of coffee in there. So, as you can see, we've got some really fun papers. This one happens to be my favorite of this little dye job today. Some more of the writing paper. A little bit of blue left on that, but really you can't see the lines anymore. And then some of the ledger paper. So I still have a few kind of drying on their own over here. I'll just leave those on the counter to dry. Actually, what I do is set them on top of the stove top as the stove cools down, so that the heat from the stove will finish drying them. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this little video, kind of get a glimpse into how I get the coffee dye paper, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye.